Welcome to Roll Call, the many roles that we all play, a new series of conversations by Watsi about stories of care, courage, and connection. At Watsi, while we love to leverage technology, we believe healthcare is human. Join us in celebrating the many roles that we all play in bringing healthcare within reach for everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for spending some time today and chatting with me. I really appreciate it. Very excited to talk to you. You've got so much experience and would love to hear more. So maybe you can start with just who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Raj Malik. I've had a relatively interesting career. I started first as an antitrust litigator. So I was actually a lawyer many, many moons ago, worked for the government, and then moved to Washington, D.C., and joined a pretty large law firm called White and Case, and a very international law firm. And after 5 years of really working my tail off, really night and day, hardly seeing at that point, she was my fiance, literally never seeing her. I said, this is not the life I sort of want to live, even though I truly did enjoy working there. And then I moved over to a couple private equity backed companies, first on the legal side, and then switched over to the business side, help
Mhm.
grow and sell those companies, and then started my own entrepreneurial journey. I actually started my own company, helped sell that company, and then joined another very early stage digital health company in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., and took that really from a zero state all the way and took it to 45 million users. So literally, we had 45 million users on our digital health platform.
Wow.
And then left that company. And now I currently invest in early stage, mostly digital health companies. Uh, and then on the side, I sit on a whole number of boards, but most importantly, I actually sit on a handful of nonprofit boards. One of them is Watsi.
Wow. And what was that moment to switch into health and health technology? What was that? Was there an inspiring moment that kind of made you or led you to say, hey, this is something I'm really interested in, and I have a lot of, passion about or investment in it?
Great question. I had built my own company and sold that in the digital security space. And so there was a very young founder, an 18, actually, no, he's 20 years old at the time, where he sort of recruited me to join his company in Washington, D.C. And really his pitch to me was, look, we are going to try to disrupt healthcare. And there has been nobody in healthcare that has really tried to take an Apple-esque experience and put that and sort of at the tip of the spear with consumers. And so consumers usually go and they interact with their health plans, and it's not usually a good experience. And so he said, why don't we build a digital health experience that will be really an Apple-esque type experience where people will be able to easily be able to understand where their costs are and also where they can go and find hospitals or physicians that they need to be able to go get um, medical care for. And so he pitched me on that idea very early, and I said, "Hey, this is a company that really is going to, especially with his mission and his mind, that we're going to be somebody." And he had a whole host of really solid advisors around him that had been in healthcare, and we were all technology folks, and so we had no background in
Hmm.
healthcare. So we said, let's really apply the group of us from the management team that were all technologists into an industry like healthcare that was old, that was rigid, that had its own way of sort of operating. We said, let's really try to be the folks that are disruptors in that industry. And I think what I'd like to say, looking back on, we did make that mark during that time period,
Yeah.
was to be able to go from zero users and be able to put 45 million users on a platform in 4 short years, and for folks to really have the ability, because we would see some of the stuff was anecdotal, but we would hear from folks that would say, we used your platform, and as a result of using of your platform, I wouldn't have gone to get my yearly physical. I went and got my yearly physical because I was incentivized due to
Hmm.
some incentives that the employer had provided. And they actually went to go get their physical. They ended up finding out that they had some type of issue, and they had to go get an intervention in order to make sure that that didn't become more acute. So we would get those sort of that feedback, and I'll tell you, there was nothing more exciting to see that when you see those and you see the emails and you see the feedback from the employees of these large companies that said, "Hey, I used your platform and it actually changed my life and actually, in some instances, actually saved their lives." It's pretty
Hmm.
incredible. One of them was we incentivized female employees to go get mammograms, go get their once a year
Hmm.
mammograms. I can't tell you like the number of folks that got the mammogram, and then there was something that was found, and
Wow.
they were able to have the intervention. So that was truly incredible to be able to say, hey, look, you're actually the application that we launched is actually making sort of having a meaningful impact on folks out there and driving health outcomes, which was in healthcare, it's always a little bit of a challenge that you say you build products and do they actually drive actually healthcare outcomes? It's difficult a lot of times to be able to show that, but it was great to be able to actually see that, look, we're actually moving the needle there.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm kind of hearing this common thread of access. So you're, really focusing on access to healthcare in a timely manner and providing preventative care where a lot of the time it's not the first thing that most people are thinking of, like mammograms, for example. Oh, I'll do it next week. Oh, I'll do it next year. But when you have something that is driving you to do that and actually take action, it's really amazing to see the outcomes. And then, as you said, the stories were really something that touched your heart. And it's really cool to actually hear you say that because it threads again a needle right to Watsi and the Watsi community and how they're using health technology really to provide access for surgeries around the world. And I would love to hear more if you have found that your experience led you to the Watsi community and how that kind of intersected.
Yeah, so well, how I led myself or got to the Watsi community was actually interesting story. I had taken a trip to South Africa. I was in South Africa and Mozambique as I turned 50 years old a couple years ago, and I saw sort of the disparity in sort of healthcare access there in South Africa and in Mozambique. And as I flew home, I have a day job. My day job is a partner at Pixel Perfect Ventures. We invest in companies. But as I flew home, I thought to myself, I have this background in healthcare. I have a background in scaling and taking technology and delivering it to large numbers of folks. Like, there's got to be something more that I can do with my background, my skills, my experience, my network as well too. And so as I flew home over the Atlantic, I remember taking out just a piece of paper. My kids were asleep, my wife was asleep, and I just said, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do as I turn 50 years old in order to increase my impact in this world? Because when I get to 80, when I get to 90 years old, hopefully, and I look back, I want to be able to say that I made more of an impact in my life with the experience that I had. So literally, I came back home. I put out an all points bulletin, an APB to my network and said, how can I get more involved? Like, what are some ways that folks might find, like the organizations, enterprises that are out there, groups that I can get more involved, that I can use my background and experience, especially in sort of the healthcare side. And interestingly, a close friend and a former colleague that was on my team at Rally reached out and said, "Hey, you should check out Watsi." My neighbor, literally backyard, is Margaret Cornelius, who is the chairwoman of the board. And he said, you should reach out to just have a conversation. Maybe that might be an organization you might want to get involved with. Brian connected me with Margaret, and the rest is history because she sent me to the website. I took a look, and from the first moment that you see the number of profiles of folks across the world that need help, that need surgical care, or need that intervention, it just gets you. And so as I talked to Margaret, I talked to McKinnon, then I talked to, Chase, spent time with Chase, and then spent time with Grace as well too, the sort of the co-founders. I said, this is an organization I have to get involved in. And so luckily they were gracious enough to invite me to join the board. And so I joined the board about a year and a half ago. And I will tell you, this is an organization that every day I will wake up thinking, what can I do more to be able to um, bring the Watsi mission and message um, to the world, because it's a mission and it's a message that needs to be broadcast loud and proud everywhere, because more people need to find out about what Watsi's doing, because there's simply, as I reflect on Watsi, there's just nothing else that's out there like that you can go to a site, see folks who need care. They need life-changing care. And you yourself, as an individual, can help facilitate that care. And not just facilitate the care as a one-time item where they'll get the surgical care um, and drive the outcome to live a healthier life. But the amount of productivity and the amount of the better life that person will be able to live over the course of their 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, however, now some of them are very young,
Mhm.
is really unprecedented. And it's something that for me, I get a lot of passion around, because you see, if one person can make that difference for somebody else, and that person can live a healthier life and a better life, you just have to do it. You just have to essentially you have to donate in order to make that person be able to get that outcome.
Wow, that's amazing. It's really incredible that you took that moment to reflect and and pause and say, how do I make that impact and how do I make that difference? And you kind of looked around and thought to yourself, what tools do I have and how can I apply it and who do I know and how do I make this work? And it's that action, that momentum that really makes the difference. And it's truly inspiring to hear because, we don't always act on the thought. We have the thought, we have the intention, but we don't always act on it. So it's really, really incredible to hear you, enact kind of that giving back and being able to really serve your community on a larger lens too, on a global lens. And I'm sure your family is incredibly proud of you. I mean, you're an investor, you are an attorney, you are an executive, you're a board member, but you're also a husband and a father. And how do you balance all of that? I would love to hear, how do you able to kind of balance that? And also, do you find that, your work in in giving and in advocacy and in access is something that you integrate into, when you chat with your kids and with your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I have a very opinionated, spunky 15-year-old daughter who it's great when we go back and forth on literally like what I do as a day job with Pixel, and then also what I do with sort of my board work, sort of the companies that I work with, but then also with the sort of the nonprofits I work with. And she at times she will also, I've told her. I've told her about Watsi, but I've also showed her what Watsi does, and in her very opinionated way, she'll pull up other types of, she's on TikTok, she's on Instagram. She will pull up what other nonprofits are doing and say and especially at a sort of a larger scale on social media to drive awareness. And she'll say, "This is what Watsi needs to start doing, and they need to start doing it now." And so I have told her, "Okay, Asha, what you really need to do is you should help me write some content that we can share with McKinnon and Sonam and team, and you can help us try to spread the word of Watsi even more. So I do spend a fair amount of time, our dinner time conversations. I'm very passionate about cooking. I cook a lot. My wife and I do. And so whenever we cook, then we'll sit down and we cook internationally from all different types of food, from Thai food, from Indian food, Middle Eastern, Spanish. And we will sit down and a lot of the conversation is around, hey, what did dad do? What did mom do? What did we do during the day? And I will integrate into the conversation. Hey, this is what happened in Watson. This is what we're facing with her. This is what we're dealing with one of our portfolio companies. And so a lot of the conversation that we have about there is sort of it is sort of business related, but it's also, hey, look, this is the lesson learned. And I will tell you, I will be reflective. There's times when I will say, I wish I would have done something better. I remember I was being interviewed um, for a board position by a recruiter, and he was pretty opinionated with sort of how I was coming across. And I remember sitting down at the table and telling my kids, like, "Hey, this is what happened," and I was a little bit stunned by how the sort of back and forth went. But I told them it made me reflect on, hey, maybe while I might have disagreed with sort of the feedback that was provided, it made me reflect on maybe, hey, how was I coming across during that conversation? So I felt like I wanted to tell my kids, while you might not agree with necessarily in an interaction with somebody who might be criticizing you, it might be an opportunity for you to say, hey, look, maybe could I do something better? Or could I, in that instance, could I shorten my pitch a little bit more to be a little more pithier? And it was reflective time that I was able to share with them to say, hey, look, in your life, you're going to deal with folks that are like that. It's important for you as well too to like take a little bit of a grain of what they're saying and say, hey, how do I improve myself?
Absolutely. And how do you, really acknowledge the other side of the story, like getting a sense of what the perspective is and, getting the whole picture, because we don't always get the whole picture. And then there's emotions involved too, if there's conversation, and it can be super challenging to actually fully sit back and see what's going on in, the context of the situation. So that's really amazing. And it kind of sounds like we need to recruit Asha because she might be our little content creator. So definitely would love to hear some of her stories because that sounds pretty great. I mean, we're living in an era of, finding ways to share stories, and that's really what we're doing here too. Is the point is to try to share kind of these hidden moments that you don't see, and also who's working in the background to make some of these organizations possible. So it is really cool to hear that as a young person she's interested in it, and you're providing her with that platform to do so, and she's seeing that you as her father is able to make that impact, to take what she's saying and apply it. So that's a pretty awesome thing to do. I love that, especially around the table eating delicious food.
Well, I will tell you, the interesting thing is, I I think when I came downstairs from, I think I was meeting with McKinnon, and I will tell you, like when I meet with McKinnon, Sonam, sort of a team, there's just this energy level that I get in my body that is like over the course of my career, I haven't really sort of felt that way. And I think there's that energy level of, and I think it comes from the team. We have a phenomenal team at Watsi, but it's also the mission and what is being done, like what we're all trying to accomplish here. And so I think I took a little bit of that after one of the calls and after we were chatting about, hey, what do we do on the social side? How do we increase sort of the volume and the reach of Watsi and what we're doing? I went downstairs and was we talked through Watsi with my daughter. She's the one who sort of, as we pulled up the profiles on the Watsi site, her response to me was, "Dad, these are like it's written. And it's like there's you write a narrative story, but like in this TikTok and the Instagram sort of world that we live in, how do you actually turn them into sort of living, breathing versus just a picture?" And it was
Mm.
fascinating to get that from at that point, she was a 14-year-old. She might have been even 13. She telling me Dad, let's like you have to sort of inject some life, have them living, breathing people versus just the picture. And I thought it was for her, it's pretty thoughtful for her as that young of an age to say, hey, look, like, and if you want to get even more awareness, and if you want to drive even more of a connection to people, um, that need care. And for the individuals that are on the site, young kids to middle-aged folks to the elderly folks that are on there on Watsi, like try to actually put a little bit of video behind it. So it's one of the things I know that Watsi is a part of the board, and as I know McKinnon and Sonam are working on, because
Hmm.
especially for the folks that are the folks that need it the most. Like these are the patients, and the patients being able to take a little bit of snippet of this is the day in their life of the challenge. Like I was on the site
Hmm.
before this conversation. Um, there was a young girl with bone cancer in her knee. There was a young boy who had a club foot, another boy who had fallen off the bed at night, and but he fell into a concrete floor and broke in his shoulder. So these are sort of the stories of, well, we might just like we in sort of the Western world might say, okay, that person will just go get care. In a lot of these countries, it's just not available. And WotC is, through the partners that we have, is the only access and the only ability for them to be able to get the life-changing surgical care that they need. So it's all the more reason why we have to get the word out for WotC as much as possible, because the more people we serve, the more lives we can actually change.
For sure, for sure. And there's a lot of discussion around health equity around there too. And I'm sure with all of the crazy things going on in the world, that must be a challenging subject as well to talk about with kids, for example, and with family. How do you find yourself layering that in with, it's almost hopeful sense with having WotC as your kind of driving force to be able to make a change in the space, because that's also can be quite challenging where you really want to make a difference, you want to do something, and you can't because you're like there's so many things, you're paralyzed by the amount of decision making and options and action. So do you have any advice on how to approach that, and how do you approach that maybe with your family, for example?
Well, so yeah, there's a paralysis by analysis that's out there as people think about what they want to do in order to help in their community, in their country, in the greater sort of global sort of world as well too. And my suggestion to folks would be just do something. I think that was a little bit of the story that I told when we were flying back from Africa. Was I just wrote the list down, and I said, I just as we land, and as I have now turned 50 years old, and as I come back, and as the kids are going to school, I have the time, and what was it, August of 2023. I got to hit the ground running, and I have to do the reach outs. Then I actually have to start doing first the reach outs, but then secondly, most importantly, start taking the meetings and actually find the organizations that I wanted to be a part of. Now that I had sort of a plan to be able to go do that once I was flying back. If folks that are out there that are just thinking, hey, I got to do something, um, I will tell you one of the easiest things is go to the Watsi page and find a patient, and it's just tugs at your heart. And even this morning, I was at the Watsi page, the young lady who had bone cancer. I just looked at it and said, okay, I got it like Apple Pay. I took it and I made my donation via Apple Pay to it. So there are things that just a matter of on a daily basis you can just go do. And I think in this world of I'm going to sit on Instagram, I'm going to sit on TikTok, take a couple minutes away from that, and you can actually find a whole host of items just to be able to get involved with, whether it's in your community, whether it's literally right down the street, your local park, or volunteering at a food bank. Actually, one of the things that we've done We literally went, we arranged for this. We went to Costco, bought a whole host of groceries, and literally went to one of the homeless shelters, and we cooked dinner, like a whole family. We ended up cooking dinner with the cooking staff
Wow.
there, served like 150 people, made barbecue chicken, mac and cheese, and for my daughter, for my son, my wife and I, and the cooking staff, we showed up, we went to Costco, we dumped out all the groceries, and we were just cooking for 4 hours. And we're able to provide food and we literally served the food as well too. And I tell you, leaving that, just looking at both the kids, first with the excitement of Asha going in and going grocery shopping and going to Costco and buying, like, our whole back trunk was full of noodles, mac and cheese, chicken. We had so much barbecue chicken and barbecue sauce that we had to make. But you can go do things. My point is, you can go do things by just literally just picking yourself up and going and finding an organization to be a part of. And if folks that are out there, Watsi could use your help as well too, in a whole host of ways. So, my biggest, um, I guess my biggest piece of advice to folks would be just look for something that you're passionate about and jump into it. And as I tell my daughter, put down the phone, because if you put down the phone, it'll allow you to become more involved and more present.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. I mean, you're really combining small acts of kindness, large acts of kindness, taking action, access, creating access for others, using the tools that you have, and also being able to advocate. You're kind of embodying all of that, which is really incredible. And I was excited to talk to you because I'm incredibly inspired, and I feel like you're living kind of what your values are, which, not a lot of people are able to do. We have them, we have the intention, but we don't always take the action. And so it's really beautiful to see that. And you're now, passing that on to generations. And it is really cool to see. Plus, we now have probably a social media and maybe a cook in the making that we might have to
Exactly.
recruit at the end of this call.
But I tell you, like, I also suffer from the same, for my son now, Evan, we have gotten to the point where, he has approached me, said, Dad, we do Meals on Wheels. We haven't done it in a couple of years now, but well, we will go and, just the Meals on Wheels here in the United States, where you actually go and you deliver food. And so he
Mhm.
has asked me now probably a handful of times, Dad, we got to go. We got to go. You got to sign up for it. You have to go, and you have to go deliver the food. And as much as I'm saying, hey, you just got to go get involved, I'm also somebody who I've looked at Evan and said, yeah, we got to go do that. We got to go do that. And I haven't done it yet, right? And so
Yeah.
that's something that even his 13th birthday is coming up next week. And one of the things I said is, hey, what do you think about the morning of your birthday going on Meals on Wheels? And to his credit, he's a 13-year-old. He said, Dad, I just want to chill for my birthday, but what do you think about the next day, like Thursday? And I said, that's a good idea. Let me go do that. So I will tell you, as much as I'm saying go get involved, go do things, I also suffer from the same, where while
Yeah.
I'm doing work for Watsi, there's items that have been on my to-do list for now, more than almost 2 years. It's a matter of scheduling it, going and doing it. And that's a little bit of what I would just say is just, like, that's the action of just going
Yeah.
doing it. Now that he and I have had the conversation after the 2 years of him probably saying, hey, Dad, let's do it, let's do it. Now I'm like, okay, it's a day after your birthday. We're going to go line it up and we're going to go do it. But it takes that, right? So
It
I think
does.
there's folks that are out there that may, as you reflect and as I say, hey, just go do it. I think there's also a degree of ever giving yourself grace of, look, people are busy. You're doing things, but
Yeah.
you can't do something like all the time. So just do it when you can and just make an effort to go do it. And that's why I think part of me also, when I'm on the phone with or on in calls or on the board meetings with the Watsi team, it gives me that energy to say, gosh, I'm actually fulfilling that mission of when 2 years ago when I came back, that I want to make a bigger impact. And so there's other ways that you can do it, not just like like going out and cooking food or going out and
Yeah.
delivering. You can actually get involved in an organization and provide your own skills and your own expertise and be able to and help an organization grow and spread its own awareness.
Touched sort of every point and really just actually remind me when I was a kid as well and doing those things, my mom would take us and she we actually took a trip to India and I had this moment where I was like, I feel like I look the same as you, a young child, but why don't you have what I have? And it was really upsetting for me, but having the guidance of, my mom saying it is upsetting, but what can we do? And how can we make this difference? And I think that really stuck with me. And I'm sure your kids will see those photos and remember those moments and think to themselves, okay, yes, there is a difference, but what can we do to kind of close that gap a little bit and really use the tools like, that their dad is enabling and their dad is also embodying to make a difference. So it's really awesome. I appreciate the conversation and really learning from your experiences.
No, no, I love it. This has been great.